welcome to Twisted Sisters Mysteries. My name is Michaela. My sister and I share a passion for learning about true crime, cults, conspiracies, and any other mysterious phenomena that pique our curiosity. If those sound like topics that you enjoy, please consider liking and subscribing. If not, and you're just here for today's episode, then welcome and thank you for being here. If you do end up liking the episode today, please feel free to leave a little like, as every interaction with this video will push my content out into the algorithm and hopefully get me some more viewers so I can continue making content. And I'm typically joined by my co-host, who is also my sister, Caitlin, but unfortunately she is not feeling well and will not be able to join us for today's episode. So that means that you and I are going to be diving into the case together. We're going to be focusing on a religion-based group who I've always found fascinating. I found their belief system and their practices very interesting, and I've recently learned about a few scandalous happenings going on in the cult, so we're going to dive into those a little bit as well. I said cult. Oops. In the religious group. High demand religious group. Before I start, I'd like to give a warning that this podcast contains themes that are not suitable for all ages and all viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. I would also like to mention that this podcast is for educational purposes only, and that everything that you will be seeing or hearing during this episode was just information that I found on the internet and combined into this one episode. I'd also like to mention that I mean no harm or disrespect to anyone involved in this group or anyone from any stories that I'm going to be telling today. I just wanted to mention that, and also that any opinions that I express during this video are mine and mine alone, and you should always do your own research and form your own opinions, because not everyone's opinion or not all research by everyone will be correct, and it's just important to think critically and to do your own research when it comes to controversial topics like this. So without further ado, let's get right into today's topic. The Church of Scientology was founded in 1952 by a man named L. Ron Hubbard. It's difficult to say exactly how many members are in the church right now. There's varying reports, and it's really up for debate, but some reports are saying that there are approximately 40,000 members in the church, whereas Scientology itself claims that they have over 10 million members. The founder of Scientology is named L. Ron Hubbard. Before we get started, this man is problematic in himself. When I was researching this man and his whole life story, I was just like, okay, red flag, red flag, red flag. In his early adolescence, L. Ron Hubbard served in World War II in the Navy and was the commander of 2 ships. His superiors quickly found him unsuitable for the position, and he was removed from his post as commander. Red flag number 1. His first suspension was because he fired at a Japanese ship that only he could see. Nobody else on the ship that they were on could see this Japanese ship. So maybe a little bit delusional, a little delulu there. And for the second time, he fired at a random island that belonged to Mexico, who was an ally to the US during World War II. So good job, L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard ended up exaggerating a lot of his experience in the military, saying that he had many injuries and several near-death experiences that were responsible for his ability to see the truth. He stated that he in several of his near-death experiences, he had visions, and that these visions were his reasoning for believing that he knew the quote-unquote truth about the universe. And these experiences and visions that he claimed to have are the basis and the foundation of the religion. So L. Ron was really a very smart and manipulative man. He wanted to be a writer, and he decided that instead of writing from his heart, he would go and find what was most popular at the time, and what he found were what was called pulp fiction magazines. They were called that because of the material that they were printed on. It had like a pulpy texture. Anyways, a lot of these magazines that were big sensations were focused around science fiction and horror. So L. Ron decided that those were going to be his genres because those were what he thought at the time would make him the most money. And he actually achieved the Guinness World Record for most published works by one author, and he has over 600 pieces of fiction published. This is quite concerning to me because, as you'll see, a lot of the beliefs and the practices that happen in Scientology seem like something out of a science fiction novel, and I've read in several sources that actually his belief system and the whole basis of the religion is very similar to one of his science fiction novels. So, did he really have visions and see the truth from his near-death experiences, or is he playing out one of his science fiction novels, basically? I don't know. So it seemed that L. Ron Hubbard was obsessed with learning about the human mind, and in the 1930s and 40s, he did a lot of traveling, at which time he met with a lot of different religious groups. He would travel from group to group or person to person, discussing their beliefs and practices inside of their religion. And he started getting into really extreme religions and dabbled in the occult for quite a while. He met several people who were high up in, I think one of them was actually the leader of a satanic cult, and the other one was just an occultist and practiced black magic. So L. Ron actually spent a lot of time with these two men, and he drew a lot of inspiration from them, which is quite concerning considering he later goes on to form his own religion. So who knows how much of the practices and beliefs are built off of what he learned from these individuals. But some sources say that he learned how to perform hypnotisms from one of the people who he practiced with. So with some time and some help from these questionable characters, L. Ron Hubbard eventually developed his own set of practices. And in the 1950s, he published the book that is widely used throughout Scientology called Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. Now, as with the science fiction novels, L. Ron took some influence from what was popular at the time. So instead of basing his religion and his practices off of what he felt in his heart, he looked to popular culture to develop his beliefs and practices. In the 1950s, a movement started that promised to enhance people's lives and help them achieve their goals. L. Ron picked up on this very quickly before the movement really took off, and based his book Dianetics off of what he was seeing from other authors such as Norman Peale, who released a self-help blockbuster in the 50s called The Power of Positive Thinking. L. Ron promised that if members followed the Dianetic practices and the other practices that he implemented into the Scientology religion, that members would have a better and more prosperous life. Their beliefs, as I said earlier, are somewhat unorthodox. The first that we'll talk about is the belief in past life and reincarnation. So not completely unorthodox. This is something that several religions believe in, but specifically for Scientologists, they believe that their past life experience and trauma is influencing their current life. So they're believing that what they've done in a past life is the reason why they're having issues in this life. And Scientology basically promises to help them work through that and to erase all of that past experience and trauma. They believe in things called thetans, which is loosely a version of what other religions would see as like a soul. So basically like your consciousness, it's what helps you make decisions, whether or not something's right or wrong, all of those things, all the things that you would attach to the idea of a soul is really what the thetan is. They believe that it is immortal, so it lives on, which checks out with the whole past life belief. And it allows members to tap into their past lives and past traumas. And according to Scientologists, there are different levels of thetans, so we'll be jumping into that a little bit later. They also believe in a godlike figure who they refer to as the Supreme Being. However, I believe that they don't learn about the Supreme Being until they reach a certain level of thetan. So it's not a belief shared across the entire church. It's just by the higher ups, if I'm not wrong. They also believe in a concept where there are two different parts of the mind. There's the reactive mind, which records and stores painful and traumatic experiences and is seen to be the source of irrational behavior. It's also full of engrams, which are recorded and stored pain and trauma from past lives. And these are brought into the human from the thetans. So the second part is the analytic mind, which is the rational and conscious part of the mind. It is associated with higher cognitive function. It operates over the reactive mind, and it is what Scientologists work to strengthen through their practices. One of the main practices of Scientology is called auditing. Each session costs money. I believe the lowest amount that I found per session was $100 per hour. So it adds up pretty quickly considering they offer auditing sessions that are hours in length. They use a combination of a form of conversational therapy. I hesitate to use the word therapy, but this is how it's explained in several of the sources. So it's a mix of conversational therapy and the use of a tool called an e-meter, which is somewhat like a polygraph machine that monitors physiological responses in the body and can monitor the body's changes when it comes to certain trigger words. So auditing sessions use a technique called clearing, where a professional helps patients recall past trauma and, in theory, help them work through the trauma and get to a point of better mental health. Unfortunately, I don't think that these people are actually professionals. I think that they were trained within the institute, so that's why I put the air quotes around professionals. And by using this technique alongside the e-meter, the auditor can see what phrases trigger negative feelings. I don't know about you, but to me that sounds like it could definitely be used for the wrong reasons if it gets into the wrong hands. Sources say it takes a minimum of 10 runs of auditing before members are considered clear. However, the group recommends that members continue auditing until they feel that their reactive mind is clear. So that's the reactive mind that we were talking about earlier in the episode that is responsible for all of those negative thoughts and negative feelings. Once the reactive mind is clear, Scientologists enter the stages of operating Thetan. And those are the stages of Thetan, or the stages of their soul that I mentioned earlier on in the episode. So there are 8 stages, and each costs money. Like I said before, sometimes hundreds or thousands of dollars. And I believe that as the members get to the higher stages, it costs increasingly more money. But I just want to recap and give some of the prices, because I really do think that this group is really in it for the money, and are trying to grow wealth. I think that was L. Ron Hubbard's original plan. He didn't make it as a science fiction writer, and so he decided to use this to his advantage and to manipulate people out of thousands and thousands, and probably up to millions of dollars at this point. So today, an auditing session can run anywhere between $100 and $300 an hour. It costs approximately $130,000 to become clear. That's at that level after the auditing, before the operating Thetan. And to fully reach the bridge of total freedom, it's estimated that it costs approximately $400,000, and that's on the low end. Sources say that as members increase in their stages, they believe that their cognitive ability is extremely heightened, and that they can do things such as controlling the world around them or leaving their own body, because they believe that Thetans are not confined to bodies, that they are free, independent beings that can travel outside of the body. Finally, the last stage of the operating Thetan is called Bridge to Total Freedom. And this is where you are at the top level of operating Thetan, and you are completely clear, and you are now allowed to know some of L. Ron Hubbard's secrets of the universe. So I hope you're prepared for this wild ride. Just remember that he was a science fiction writer, so a lot of this might sound like something that you'd see in a science fiction novel. So they believe that 75 million years ago, an ancient being named Xenu was a dictator of the Galactic Confederacy. They believe that there was an overpopulation while he was ruling, and that he took many, many different Thetans from heaven, or from the universe. Sorry, I guess it wouldn't be from heaven. Anyways, he took many Thetans from the universe and brought them down to Earth, which was considered a prison, and he tossed them into a volcano, which is why you'll see the picture of volcanoes frequently within the Scientology community. It's also the current cover of the Dianetics book is a picture of a volcano. So he dropped the Thetans into the volcano, and then they exploded and were released into the environment. They were angry, and they attached themselves to humans, and that is why humans are affected by these negative energies and negative emotions, and they need to go through auditing and the operating Thetan stages before they can know the full truth and I guess be freed from the Thetan energy. So I know this sounds pretty out there. I did say that some of their beliefs were a bit unorthodox, but just believing in these things does not make someone inherently bad or naive or any of those things. Any type of religion, even mainstream religions, can seem a little bit strange in their belief systems without full context. So I'd like everybody to keep that in mind. And there are actually several celebrities who have ties to the religion. Tom Cruise, Elizabeth Moss, and John Travolta are all currently involved in the religion and are all currently Scientologists. And Scientology even has several celebrity centers that are specifically for celebrities. Obviously, it's pretty easy to see Scientology's benefit to having celebrities in their group, considering these people have a large following and may bring large numbers of followers into the group. But we'll soon see why having celebrities involved with Scientology might not always be in their best interest. But first, I'd like to talk about some of the accusations and some of the victim statements. This is the part where I said might be a little bit overwhelming for some people. So if you're not ready to hear this, please click away now, and I hope to see you again soon. But for the rest of us, I'd like to begin by explaining what is referred to as Gold Base. So Gold Base is the de facto international headquarters of the Church of Scientology, located in California, approximately 85 miles from Los Angeles. The headquarters is a residence to over 1,000 members, and most of these members are part of a devout group inside of Scientology called the Sea Organization, or Sea Orgs for short. The Sea Orgs are a high control group who seem to be very protective of what is going on inside of the walls of the headquarters. There are security fences with razor wire and cameras set up all around the perimeter of the property. They also have 24/7 surveillance on the roads that pass through and around the property. The church actually tried to have the road shut down or moved to go around the property, but they were denied. This all just leaves me to question, what are they hiding? This seems a little bit extreme for just a religious group that is not doing anything wrong, but I mean, all that I can do is speculate based off of the details that we're about to get into, but obviously there's something really big going on here. So the Sea Orgs are portrayed by Scientologists as devout Scientologists who dedicate their life to the religion. They in turn have to sign a 1 billion year contract to prove that they are actually devout and that they are actually committed to Scientology. Many accounts lead me to believe that the Sea Orgs is an extremely high control group. They have very strict rules, such as Sea Orgs can only marry other Sea Orgs and they cannot marry outside. They are required to make confessions, and they're strongly encouraged to snitch on other members for breaking the rules, especially if they are found talking or gossiping about other members or about the church or the church leaders. There have been several accusations made by ex-members, and the accusations sound pretty extreme. Although on the Scientology website, they claim that they follow all child labor guidelines set in place by the state, there's been several accusations of child labor and hard manual labor being performed by children in the Gold Base within the Sea Orgs organization. The Scientology website claims that the minimum age of Sea organization members is generally the minimum age in any state or country that a person is legally permitted to work. I like the use of their term generally here, because there have been several claims of Sea Org members as young as 11 or 12 years old. And remember, these Sea Orgs have to sign a 1 billion year contract upon joining the Sea Orgs. So these 11 or 12-year-old children are signing contracts with this group. Now, you would think that this is not legally binding. However, Scientologists believe that children should adhere to the same rules and standards as adults because their thetans are billions of years old and they are fully accountable for everything that they do. So signing this billion-year contract is binding by the religion's terms. And unfortunately, as many of us know, there are a lot of difficulties when it comes to the government trying to have anything to do with anything religious. It's really difficult for them to intervene because there is the Freedom of Religion Act. Children are required to follow all rules, which means they're often making confessions against their peers or even their own family members. So this creates an incredibly confusing environment for the child. They're often separated with their family. On the website, it actually has a section where they talk about if the child's parents are not already a Sea Org or if they do not wish to move into the headquarters or become a Sea Org, children will be appointed a guardian with the parents' approval. Personally, I can see that being incredibly problematic for the children. You have no idea who you're leaving your children in the hands of. And not only that, we know that in some of these high-demand religious groups, people are often manipulated and people are not always making the best decisions for their children and for their families, which is likely the case of the very young members of this group. So there are also several reports of abuse happening between the children and these appointed guardians. One ex-member stated that her guardian neglected her completely, didn't even give her the time of day, honestly. She met her when she joined and she barely talked to her the entire time that she was there. She also stated that they were only allowed to see their parents, their real parents, every so often, and that they had to have monitored phone calls with their parents only when their guardians allowed them to. So pretty strict, pretty controlling. And unfortunately, a lot of these accusations are disregarded because there's just a lack of evidence. Everything is hearsay, and no one inside of the Sea Orgs has come forward complaining about living conditions or about anything happening inside of the residence. It's just the ex-members who are complaining. So remember when I was talking about how having celebrities in your religious organization is not always the best case scenario for you? Well, there are a few reasons for that I'll share with you now. First of all, there have been a few celebrities who have left Scientology and who have become whistleblowers for the group, or against the group, I suppose, such as actress Leah Remini. You may recognize her from the TV show King of Queens. She was the wife in the show, and she's in several other TV shows and movies. She has made several accusations against the group. In 2023, actor Danny Masterson, who you may know from that 70s show and from co-starring in the TV show The Ranch with that 70s show co-star Ashton Kutcher, in 2023, Danny Masterson was convicted of 2 counts of rape, and he was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. Masterson unfortunately had the opportunity to rape several of the female Scientologists. It's unfortunately the case in these types of environments that abuse, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, or sexual, can happen quite often. There are patriarchal structures that are often formed, and it leads to women having to submit to men, and it breeds an environment for predators. So unfortunately, these women had to suffer from this individual. However, thankfully, justice has been served, and he is serving time for his crimes, because it's not necessarily that often that people actually do have to be accountable for these types of things within religious groups because of, like I said earlier, that kind of wall between government and freedom of religion. So thankfully, this time, the offender was brought to justice and is serving a long sentence for his crimes. But like I said, it's not always the case, which is very sad. But that is one major reason and one major strike against the Scientology religion. They definitely got a lot of bad publicity for that, and I believe, from what I've read at least, Masterson is still getting the support of the church and is using his connections and his ties to the church to his advantage, even from prison. So unfortunately, some things never do end up changing. So as I said before, I don't want to refer to this group as a cult, although it is often referred to as such, but I definitely think that there are some cult-like activities going on, especially within that gold base with the Sea Orgs. That's definitely some really, really unhealthy and really toxic structuring going on there. Patriarchal structures, hierarchy, and the abuse of children and also of the adult members as well. They're extremely controlled. And I might add, they're also not allowed to have they're also not allowed to have much, if any at all, access to the outside world. So that means they're not allowed to watch television. They're not allowed to have a computer with access to the internet. They're not generally allowed to make a lot of phone calls outside of the residence. Like I said, with the children calling their parents, it always had to be monitored. I'm not sure if that's the case for all phone calls or just the phone calls between the children and their parents. The list goes on and on. It's extremely toxic and extremely unhealthy, and I really hope that more and more people start coming out of the woodwork and bringing, not that I want it to be true that people are having a horrible experience inside of this group, but I hope that something can be done about the seemingly horrific things happening inside of those walls. And that's it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much again for joining me. I really appreciate all of you watching. If you like the video, please like and comment. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, please leave that in the comments as well. And please feel free to subscribe. Every subscription and every interaction with this video pushes my content further out into the algorithm and hopefully brings me toward more like-minded people, so that I can share this content with you all and continue making content about the things that I love and the things that I'm passionate about learning. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a great day, and please stay safe.